Have you ever really thought about how the pills in your medicine cabinet actually got there? It's this incredible journey, that starts way up high with global health policy and ends right down at the science of how a single pill works inside your body. So in this explainer, we're going to follow that journey and honestly, uncover some of the secrets of the drugs we rely on every single day. Let's dive in. You know the feeling, right? You walk into a pharmacy and you're just hit with this wall of boxes, rows and rows of them, all promising to make you feel better. It's kind of overwhelming. And this variety, it brings up a really big question. With literally thousands of drugs out there, how do entire countries and health systems decide which ones matter most? How do they figure out which medicines are so important that they need to be available for everyone, all the time? So how do you even begin to tackle that problem of just too much choice? Well, it all starts with a global strategy, and it's built on a really simple but powerful idea. Some drugs are just more important than others. And here's the solution from the World Health Organization, the concept of essential medicines. Now, the definition here is absolutely key. It's not just about what works best in a lab. It's about meeting the priority health needs of an entire population. That means focusing on the biggest, most common health problems with drugs that are not only proven to be safe and effective, but also, and this is huge, affordable enough for everyone. So what kind of priority needs are we talking about here? Well, it's the real fundamentals of public health. We're talking about the heavy hitters, antibiotics to fight off deadly infections, insulin to manage diabetes, basic painkillers to help people manage suffering, and of course, emergency drugs like epinephrine that can literally be the difference between life and death. The goal here isn't fancy, it's fundamental. Save the most lives and reduce the most suffering in the fairest way possible. Okay, so what does it actually take for a drug to make it onto the super exclusive essential list? I can tell you it's not about slick marketing or having a famous brand name. There's a really strict, rational set of criteria that every single potential drug has to pass. And these criteria are actually pretty easy to remember with the acronym SANE. First, S is for safety. A drug has to do way more good than harm, period. A is for affordability, because let's be real, a miracle cure is completely useless if nobody can afford it. N is for need. The drug has to tackle a real, significant public health problem. And finally, E is for efficacy. It has to be proven with solid evidence that it actually works. SANE. It's a simple, logical framework for making incredibly important, life-saving decisions. Okay, so we've seen how these essential medicines get chosen on a global scale. Now let's bring it back home and see how this all plays out in your local pharmacy. Because once a drug is approved for people to use, it gets sorted into one of two main categories. And that category decides exactly how you can get your hands on it. And here are the two paths: prescription drugs and over-the-counter drugs, or OTCs. The biggest difference really comes down to a gatekeeper. For prescription drugs, like powerful antibiotics, that gatekeeper is a doctor. You need their diagnosis and supervision because these drugs can be risky if they're used the wrong way. But for OTC drugs, like paracetamol or some vitamins, they're considered safe enough for you to be your own gatekeeper. You can just pick them up for minor issues, no prescription needed. Now, being able to just walk into a store and grab something for a headache, that's incredibly convenient, right? And it is. But that convenience, well, it comes with a trade-off that we really, really need to understand. The pros are pretty obvious. OTCs give us quick, affordable access to relief for minor stuff. And that's a huge deal. It frees up doctors' time and reduces the load on hospitals so they can focus on more serious cases. And sometimes the impact is massive. Just think about oral rehydration salts, or ORS. Making that simple solution available over the counter has saved millions upon millions of children's lives from dehydration. It's a game changer. But here's the other side of that coin. When you don't have a doctor's guidance, it's pretty easy to pick the wrong treatment. And what's even more dangerous is that an OTC drug might make you feel better for a little while, but all it's doing is masking the symptoms of a much more serious disease. That can delay you from getting the right diagnosis when you really need it. Plus, long-term misuse of even common stuff like paracetamol can lead to serious organ damage like kidney failure. All right, so far we've talked about how drugs get chosen and how they're categorized. For this last part, let's get down to the really cool science of how they actually work. And to do that, we need to get a handle on a couple of key ideas that scientists use to measure a drug's power. First up is a concept called affinity. So imagine our bodies are full of these tiny molecular locks. They're called receptors. And drugs are basically keys that are designed to fit into those locks. Affinity is just a measure of how well a specific key fits into a specific lock. If a drug has high affinity,
It's a perfect fit. It binds tightly and easily. If it has low affinity, it's kind of a sloppy fit. That's it. Affinity is all about the binding.
Okay, but what happens next? That's where efficacy comes in, and this is absolutely crucial. See, it's not enough for the key to just fit in the lock. That doesn't do anything. Efficacy is the ability of that key to actually turn and open the door. It's the drug's power after it binds to kick off a chain reaction and produce a real effect in your body. A drug could have amazing affinity, a perfect fit, but if it has zero efficacy, it just sits there and does absolutely nothing. So, this brings us to probably the most important distinction we're going to talk about, the difference between efficacy and another word you hear all the time, potency. Efficacy is the maximum possible effect a drug can have. Think of it as the drug's ultimate power level. Potency, on the other hand, is just about the amount of the drug you need to get a result. Potency tells you the dose, but efficacy tells you how well the drug actually works. And that's why, almost always, efficacy is the much more important thing to look at when choosing the right medicine.
Let's make this crystal clear. Imagine you have two different painkillers. Drug A is super potent. You only need a tiny 10 milligram pill. Drug B is way less potent, so you need a much bigger 500 milligram dose. But here's the catch. Drug A, the potent one, can only get rid of a mild headache. Drug B, the less potent one, can actually relieve intense pain after major surgery. So which drug is more effective? It's drug B, hands down. It produces a much bigger, more powerful effect, even though you need to take more of it.
So the next time you see a commercial for a drug that's bragging about its new low-dose formula, just remember what we talked about today. Ask yourself, are they actually selling you higher efficacy, a drug that works better and produces a bigger result? Or are they just selling you higher potency, which just means you get to swallow a smaller pill? Knowing the answer to that question, well, that can make all the difference in understanding what a medicine really does.